All right, here we go. So today I'm going to give you 4 steps. Now these 4 steps should bring you to new levels no matter what you're doing. As you can see here, we have a box, and inside this box are 5 levels. This is a hierarchy, and the steps I give you here today should help you move up through these levels. Now as you start moving up through these levels, we're not just talking about money, we're talking about living a meaningful life. A life that can mean something to you, where you're contributing to the world and you're living your purpose and you know you're on your path. Because as you start moving up through these levels, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Everything begins to work more efficiently because your psychology changes and life really begins to move forward. So the first level here at the bottom is called learned helplessness. I put LH. This right here is where most people end up. This is where I ended up. And way before I ever thought I could do something like fly a helicopter, never mind build one with my own 2 hands, it's like, yeah, I was caught in learned helplessness. I came from a difficult childhood, and those of you who know my story, all I saw as a kid was disarray, and it was reinforced. We had domestic disputes almost every night, and it wasn't pretty. As a kid, I was shown how things can't be done. And the only father figure I had was my older brother, and one day he just never came home from school. He ran away. And I tell that whole story in my book, The Happiness Factors. You can get a free copy of that by clicking the button below. It's a free offer. You know, I'd have a stepfather, and I would take a liking to him, and he'd come home after being out all night drinking, and he'd be a totally different person. You know, he'd decide to just demolish the house. He would just flatten everything. So it's like, as I got older, I couldn't even pay my electric bill because I was stuck in this learned helplessness from the things I saw as a kid. Those traumatic experiences. This is when we learn to be helpless. And most people are here because they've tried before and they failed. So they don't want to feel that pain again, or they've had traumatic experiences like I've had, or they believe that life is supposed to be traumatic. You know, they believe that life is supposed to be hard, so they end up recreating that. We are self-fulfilling creatures, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Or maybe they simply don't want to put their nervous system through that pain, so they associate pain to moving ahead. And most people distract themselves. They get caught in drinking or too much social activity or TV, and deep down they're not happy. They know they're not on their path. Now the second one up from learned helplessness is called scarcity. Scarcity is not much above learned helplessness. Scarcity is when you can't see the opportunities or the abundance that surrounds us every day. We live in America, and when you're in learned helplessness or scarcity, you can't even see something like the library, which is a building you can walk into and begin to gain knowledge and take in information that can bring you to new levels absolutely free. It's a psychological term known as a scotoma. It's a blind spot. You believe there are no opportunities, so you can't see them. You know, I had a friend, and recently I just gave her these 4 steps that I'll give you in a minute, and she started using them in her life, and it really started to help her. And you could physically see a change in her as she went about the things throughout her day. She had more energy, but it was really more a psychology change. You know, it was really powerful to see because she began to attract better things, and she could see those opportunities because those blind spots came down. Now, those of you who know me, you know I test a lot of different things, so I won't keep this up very long. I'll put up a video like this for a little while, and I'll take it down. So don't miss out on the opportunity and the knowledge and the offer down below. Press the button, there's no gimmicks. So learned helplessness and scarcity, these are the 2 levels where most people end up. And you see this in health, you see this in wealth, you see this in relationships and social activities. You see this with people's jobs. They're not happy with their job. Most people are not happy with their life. Most people are just not happy with the path they're on. They're around low quality people, and it's like, I recently read a statistic that said 20 to 30% of people are on medication to try to make themselves happy, and 30 to 50% are either lonely or they're having anxiety attacks. So it's like they know they're not on their path, and deep down it's like a deep pain, so it comes out in different ways. Now if you're here, I have good news and bad news. I was here, so there's a way out. It's possible. Now, the bad news is when you're in learned helplessness or scarcity, sometimes you don't know you're here. So it's like you can get too far in, and if you procrastinate on something that can help bring you out, like the offer I have for you down below, it's like this will get reinforced, and next thing you know, you get to a point where it's non-recoverable. So you can't procrastinate. In life, you're always faced with a choice. You're at a crossroads. You can go this way or that way. It's up to you. You're the only one who can take action and move forward here, so you got to do this. Push the button. It's free. Now, once you take action, you begin breaking ahead through these levels. Now, above scarcity is a healthy mindset. We'll just call this healthy. Excuse my writing. Now this level here is being proactive. When you're here, healthy, you're not necessarily way ahead in life. You don't have a bunch of notoriety or a large nest egg yet. But this is when you're happy, you're healthy. You begin to feel good, so you begin to create momentum. You don't necessarily have a perfect body, but you're on your way. You start gaining momentum. You begin to attract better things in your life, and you begin to see the opportunities that were right in front of your face the whole time. And the next level up from healthy is called prosperous. This level, prosperous, is when you really start getting ahead. You begin to create leverage. You've been in this healthy stage for a while and it starts working upon itself. That's leverage. So you begin to gain more leverage. And from here, the last phase, the very top phase, is called impact. This is where you're actually changing the world. This is when you begin contributing to the world in your own special way. This is when you find the time and the fortitude to maybe want to pay it forward. This is when you have the know-how and the energy to do a video like this or write a book. This is when you feel that urge to want to give to other people. You want to try to bring people up and show them, hey, look, I was down here. I was in learned helplessness. It's not easy, but you can break through these barriers. If I can do it, you can do it. At one point in my life, I was in a nightmare because the people around me who I thought were good people, deep down really weren't, because I pushed really hard to break through these barriers. I started gaining momentum and I began to get to higher levels. I began to fly helicopters and do things out of the ordinary. Now, instead of these people being happy for me, it's like they would say and do things to try to bring me back down. They would try to get me to doubt myself. And the problem was I came from a difficult childhood. So I already had this learned helplessness or this low self-esteem. I never been way up top before, so I doubted it too. And looking back, it's like I can confidently tell you I was always there for the greater good of other people. I was always trying to do the right thing. I was what you call a philanthropist deep down. Yeah, that was my nature. Innately, I'm a philanthropist. That's who I am. I have a friend, they have a band, and they have a song called Misanthropy Made Easy, okay? A misanthropist is the opposite of a philanthropist. A misanthropist is someone who doesn't like people. It's not a very positive song, but a lot of people actually identify with it because as children, we start out as philanthropists. We love people, but as time goes on, it's like people do and say things and they try to bring you down, and before you know it, you lose faith in humanity. Now, of course, I'm not here to support that. I'm trying to be on the opposite side. I'm trying to bring people up and writing a book like The Happiness Factors. I want people to believe in humanity again, and that's why I do a video like this. But it's like, there are people out there who actually hated. They didn't want to see me do well. They didn't want to see me break through these barriers. They weren't really aggressive about it and upfront and forward. They were passive aggressive about it. So it really wasn't evident. And some of these people were my friends, and I wasn't sure. It's like I thought they were on my side, but the worst thing about it was I was kind of naive to it because I simply don't operate that way. I don't think that way, so I wouldn't know the concept. And that's the thing about growing up in a small town. A lot of people have that small town mindset. So when you start doing things that are a little out of the ordinary, like flying a helicopter, they may say and do things. Of course, I get along with everyone, and it was always all good, but it's like there were some. And what happened is I started meditating. And I began becoming more aware of my surroundings, more aware of people's intent and what was going on. I began to become sharper and read more, and I gained more knowledge and information. I started exercising neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the fact that the mind is like a muscle, and the more we exercise the mind, the stronger it gets with use. We can literally become stronger and smarter in our mind. And I could see things that I couldn't see before. And I saw that some people who I thought were on my side, on the one hand they were, but on the other hand, they had cynicism. They were doing and saying things to try to hold me back to their level. It's all good, and sometimes it was subconscious, they didn't mean it, but sometimes it was the people I least expected. And I always thought the best about everyone. I always had the best intentions for everyone. So once again, we have to be careful of that as we begin to break through these barriers here. That's important. So you're one of the very few people who's watching this video, and this is the stuff they should have taught us in high school, but they left it out. This is why so many people suffer day to day. Most people are not happy. My whole life, I've tried many different things, and at one point I lost everything, so I struggled. And I see a lot of people struggling. These days, it's like a lot of people are extremely stressed. If it's not the economy, it's the stock market. If it's not that, it's the fact that jobs aren't being turned around. If it's not that, then it's a marriage, or they're worried about their children. Or if it's none of those things, then they're worried about who may lead the country. It's politics. So I'd like to give you these 4 steps here, because these 4 steps you will find to be very helpful. Now, we all go through extremely difficult times. We all go through times when we're not sure what's going to happen to us. We go through major uncertainties, maybe losing a relationship, or somebody's betrayed us, or maybe it's a problem with a child, or a divorce, or a job, and the world is always changing. Some people are uncertain whether or not they're ever going to find that right person or get married. So we can have these uncertainties about our future. So I'd like to give you these insights because these steps can really make a difference and give you an edge. Now, when I talk about giving you an edge, I mean this can really help you take back control if you ever find yourself in that position of uncertainty. And those of you who know my story, you know there were times in my life when I didn't think I was going to make it through. There was one point in my life I was critical for 3 weeks at the Bridgeport, Connecticut burn unit with smoke inhalation. I had 2nd and 3rd degree burns to over 33% of my body. I also had a near-death experience after being pulled out by a riptide. I almost drowned. I remember laying on a beach looking up at the lifeguard crew and thanking them for saving my life, not to mention the time I was a passenger in a helicopter crash, or those times as a kid not knowing where I would live due to those domestic disputes. So there were times in my life when I lost everything, when it dwindled to zero in the stock market as it crashed. So major uncertainties will happen, and they happen to everyone. And I'm here to tell you, these turning points, so to speak, in our lives are really where our destinies are shaped. Whether it's shaped for the good or the bad really comes down to you. So whether these events can work for you or against you really comes down to the choice you make and the meaning you attach to it and to what you focus on. What can really help you get through these difficult times is how you consciously direct your mind. So it's not about what happens to us, it's about the meaning we choose to attach to what happens to us. So whether it's a relationship that has gone sour, a loved one who's struggling, we need to find the proper meaning in these situations. And once you do that, everything can shift. This is where we make the shift. You know, the time when my helicopter crashed, to me that was devastating. Everything I worked for over 10 years up to that moment crashed into a line of trees in a field across the street from my house. I trusted an instructor who had a lot of experience in these helicopters, and my whole dream, everything I worked for over a decade, was to own and fly my own helicopter and have a career in aviation. And it took me years just to get to that point, as you can imagine. It was my dream to have this. And after coming from that childhood, in an instant it was gone, another traumatic experience, one simple mistake he made. Now the good news is, neither one of us was physically hurt, and that pain of being inside that helicopter but not being able to take the controls because I was just a student at the time, well, that pain drove me. It drove me to go to school and get certified by the FAA to rebuild these helicopters. So I got my repairman certificate, and now I can rebuild it. And guess what? As a result of this, today I'm a lot safer in the air than other helicopter pilots, because not only can I fly it as a VFR helicopter pilot, but I can actually rebuild it from scratch. I know every nut and bolt like the back of my hand, and it makes me a real safe pilot. So sometimes these uncertain times are pushing us to rise to higher levels. Now my goal was to never rebuild a helicopter. It was part of my destiny. It was something I needed to learn, and today I'm better for it. Everything comes down to the meaning we give it, and those meanings come from a choice. So if you get laid off from a job, does this mean this is the end or the beginning? It could be now you have the time to sell on eBay like you always wanted to learn to, or choose a different career path, because we live in a world of abundance. You see, we all have that power inside. It's the power that can change where we end up by changing the meaning we attach. And those changes can happen in a moment. In a moment we could say no more, never again, or this is the end, or let's begin, let's go for it, let's move ahead. These shifts in our lives can really help us push past these thresholds and move forward. Now, those of you know what I do, you know I like to help people get to their outcomes. And the very first step I want to give you is to get exactly clear on your targets, your outcomes. Your targets are your goals. Some people call them goals, I call them targets. We want to get clear on the 5 most important targets in our life for the next 2 years. All right? That's step number 1. This is very powerful because human beings are extremely powerful. But in order to gain that resourcefulness or tap into it, we have to get very clear and very precise. We have to pinpoint our direction, and that's when we can really gain that power. Now, the second step is to go out there and find the knowledge. Now, the order of this is very important. A lot of people screw this up. You know, they'll go out there and they'll take action before getting the knowledge, and they'll try to go toward their goals and they'll make a bunch of mistakes. So we have to gain the knowledge second. And the best way to gain knowledge is through books. All readers are leaders. Now the third tip or the third step, is to model other people's strategies. I talk about this in one of my other videos and one of my other books. We don't necessarily want to plan because plans are not changeable. We need a strategy. Strategies are changeable. The world is always changing, so we need to be changeable. And the best thing you can do is find a mentor through books and find their strategy. You see, in a book, their strategies are laid out for you. And that's what reading books is all about. You begin to start thinking like the author. You begin gaining a sense of urgency, and that's the fourth step. We create a sense of urgency by knowing why. Once we know why we want our targets and our goals, we can gain that motivation. We can start moving forward. It starts pulling us forward toward it. And I talk about that in my book, The Happiness Factors. You see, this book here is not just about happiness. It's about gaining the proper psychology so you begin working on all 8 cylinders. And you can get your free copy of this book by pushing the button down below. This book has changed lives and it can change your life. It's absolutely free. Now I'm just giving this away because I know if I put this stuff out to the world, it always comes back to me. It always has. I lived by these principles for many years and it made me who I am today. So click the free link below. We'll see you on the other side and stay happy.